everybody. Welcome to the world's greatest Bronze Age Spider-Man podcast. Here comes the Spider-Cast. I am your co-host, Mike Allen. As always, I'm joined by
Joshua Mervell, and today we're going to be taking a look at the first 3 episodes of the 94 animated series of Amazing Spider-Man Season 4.
That's right, and we are joined by Andrew Barry Helmer.
Ooh,
hello.
Welcome back.
Wait, what's your you have a nickname, don't you? I don't remember what your nickname is.
Barry?
No. Don't you have a superhero name? I always forget these things.
I don't. I
gotta work on that, Barry.
Just Barry. Just Barry.
We'll think of one before the hour's through.
But it's funny because I've gone by Barry for so much of my life that a lot of people think that in some way it's part of my name. It's not at all.
Where did you get that nickname from?
Oh, interesting.
It's a weird nickname for Barry White when I was just 12, 13, somebody thought it was funny that the tiniest, whitest kid in the world, they would call him Barry White. So, and here I am at 36 years old.
That's hilarious.
That's so funny.
That's like calling the biggest guy in the prison Tiny, right?
Tiny, yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So, okay, I did not actually realize this, Barry, but you have not seen the Spider-Man cartoons since the 90s, correct?
No, but I've done the thing that a lot of people have done in that I'm like, I'm going to watch it. And so I've started watching it, and I've probably done that about a dozen times. And I pretty much I've seen Night of the Lizard so many times.
Yeah.
And then I usually make it maybe 1 or 2 in. I feel like the next arc is the Spider Slayers.
Right.
And I get in there and I'm like, okay, I'm enjoying this. And then a year goes by and I'm like, I'm going to rewatch it. And then I'm like, I'll start over again. But now, having watched these episodes, I'm like, okay, I'm actually going to rewatch it, but I'm just going to skip over the first 3 episodes because I've seen them enough.
Yeah, I hear you. So, okay, there's 3 episodes. I have a terrible time summarizing episode plots, but Barry, do you want to take one of these?
Okay, sure, yeah, I can do the first one there.
Okay, sure, and then Josh, do you want to do the second one and I'll do the third one?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. All right, Barry, so do the honors, and we are talking about, what's the first one called? Guilty. This is very confusing. This is Partners in Danger, Chapter 1, Guilty.
That was always my favorite thing about the Spider-Man animated series is you would always be in the Neogenic Nightmare chapter 17.
Yeah,
right.
It Spider-Man takes a bank loan part 3.
Yeah,
right.
And
it kind of follows a comic naming convention too, which is kind of fun.
Right.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it was always just loads of fun, and I remember this is probably how I learned Roman numerals as a young kid, because they would get real, because then they would get deep, from the first Rocky 1 through 5, you got to learn, up till 5, but after that you needed something else. So this one would definitely either be chapter 13, chapter 14. So yeah, so we're Partners in Danger, chapter 1.
Yes.
Guilty. This one was a lot of fun. So it opened with a really long recap of everything that had happened in the previous season, which I appreciated, having not seen it in a good 25 years. But a lot of it really kind of came right back in. So basically the the season ended with Mary Jane disappearing, essentially. And I remember that this cliffhanger dragged out forever. And not only that, but because of the way they aired it, you never knew when there was going to be new episodes. They didn't really schedule them well, so you would be right. And then they would just start over from the beginning again because it was syndicated. And then so you would get all the way to the end, and you're like, maybe this time they're gonna pick up where it, and it didn't. Yep. So yeah, we pick up with that, and Parker has lost Mary Jane. He's blaming himself and his life as Spider-Man. Rightfully so, as the reason for her disappearance. And in a very weird leap in logic, he's just oh man, I wonder, is is this in this episode? I can't remember, but he's like, man, who else knows about loss? And he's like, oh, right, Felicia Hardy lost Michael Morbius.
Bit of a stretch there.
He was really calling for a booty call, honestly. Let's be real. Like, he couldn't say it in the show, but that's exactly what was happening.
Yeah, he definitely was. Was. So, we... oh, God. Oh, but that was, that's an aside. The main thing was this episode kind of centers around Robbie Robertson gets framed for a crime. And he basically, it opens with Robbie and Jonah talking to each other in the Bugle office and, doing their regular banter. And, it all, Jonah's being a bit of a Jonah about everything. He's kind of a dick. And Robbie's like, well, I gotta go watch Randy go play in, the All-Star game. I'll see you later, Jonah. And he leaves the office and he is immediately knockout gassed as soon as he gets into a cab. And then he wakes up in the middle of a bank robbery and a bunch of people are calling him Mastermind. And Spider-Man shows up to break it up. And then, Robbie seemingly shoots Spider-Man, but really the gun just goes off. Then Robbie, is caught by Spider-Man, who unmasks him and he's like, oh no, it's Robbie. And then he has what is the fastest trial in the in the criminal justice system. He is sentenced and jailed within a good 12 hours. He gets up to the stand and he starts telling his story and the lawyer's just like, no, you don't even get to tell your side of the story. Mm-hmm. This is serious, not a Saturday morning cartoon, which was, obviously
a good in-joke.
Yeah. So the rest of the episode is basically about both Jonah and Spider-Man trying to figure out who framed Robbie. There's a little bit of a team up between Jonah and Spider-Man, even though Jonah remains prickly through the whole thing. We get to see Jonah back in his element as Jigsaw Jameson, the young hotshot reporter he claimed to be before he became the editor. And we see him just sinking back into his old habits. He hits up all the same people who are still informants on the streets.
30 years later.
Yeah, 30 years later he goes to see this cop and he's like, you're still the best guy on the streets for information. You're like, how do you know that? And he goes to see this who was clearly this, young hot waitress, but it's been 30 years and she's still working there. And he's like, you're gonna take me to this guy. And so he gets into the whole thing, and they basically are able to exonerate Robbie together, but not before we find out that the person who put him there was obviously Kingpin, who is trying to break out his son Richard from Rooker's Island, which is not Riker's Island, but Rooker's Island. And it's the most elaborate way of breaking his son out of prison, because Tombstone is also in Rooker's, and Tombstone has it out for Robbie. And I didn't even really quite grasp how Tombstone came into it all. I wasn't really, I guess he just assumed that Tombstone would help everybody break out. And so that was Kingpin's really convoluted plan. So, it ends with Robbie back on the streets and he's fine. And, Tombstone and Richard Fisk go back to jail, and then we are able to go into the next episode. That was about it. Anything you can think that I missed?
I don't think so.
No.
It was pretty convoluted, as you said. It was kind of hard to keep track of what was going on. Now, one thing I want to point out before we even get into the specifics of this episode is the one thing about this series that I didn't like in the 90s and I still don't like is this is one of the most fast-paced shows I have ever seen, okay? Mm-hmm. Now, if you consider, a beat to be as a defined event in a story, this movie or this show, it's someone's reacting to something and then in dialogue, and then the visual is already showing the next thing that's happening. like your brain is operating on 6 different levels to follow what's going on. And I'm sure a kid has no problem with that, but I just always thought it was so fast paced. Like, do you agree with that, Barry?
Oh yeah, it really is, especially at this point in the series where it's juggling so many different plot lines, and it's not dissimilar from just picking up a random issue of Amazing and just being like, who the hell are these people? What's going on? And like, it tries its best to catch you up. Like, I didn't remember the show having as many flashbacks to previous episodes, but every single episode we watched was like, oh, right, you gotta remember this. And like, you could see it almost like a tongue-in-cheek editor joke being in there at some place. But yeah.
I feel like too, a lot of the stuff that happened, particularly in these few episodes that we've been watching, was just like unneeded. You know what I mean? Like Kingpin was like, don't worry, I know of a way that I can make sure that Robbie goes over to Rooker's Island. Don't worry about it. And then we had this whole scene where the guy's like, Robbie, you're going here. He's like, oh no, my computer's glitching. What's happening? And then he's like, okay, well, I guess you're going to Rooker's. And the security guard's like, are you sure? You just said another place. He's like, no, I couldn't have said that. It says Rooker's right here. You see? And it was just like, really? We couldn't have just been like, Kingpin's like, don't worry, I've got a hookup. And then we see Robbie in a bus or whatever on the way, or like on the boat to the island, and then that's it. No, it had to be like a whole
and at what point, like, there's already so many leaps in logic in this. Like, why, like, obviously the trial goes really fast and all that, but like, at no point would I have questioned if he just ended up in the same jail. Like, I didn't need him to go to another jail and then get transferred to a jail. I would have just been like, oh, Kingpin knows where they send people.
And they set him up to be like this crime boss, right? They even made him like a supervillain name and everything.
Mastermind.
So it would make sense that like, oh, this guy, this mastermind character, let's put him away in the supervillain prison. I don't know. It wasn't needed. And even like the end trial was like extremely fast. Yeah. Jada Jonah Jameson is like holding up a picture. He's like, look it, gun was fake. The judge is like, all right, that's enough for me. You go free. Sorry, buddy. Sorry about what happened last time, but
as an adult, it was really hard to watch, knowing how the American justice system like works, and being like, oh man, even after they proved he's innocent, he might be in there for another 12 years until he gets a stay in court.
Now, I want to point out. So Mastermind, I don't know if you know this, he is from the comics. Okay. And he's actually... Oh, wait, no, I'm thinking of Crime Master.
Crime Master.
Okay, because the Rose...
I thought Mastermind was a DC character.
Mastermind sounds...
Okay. Yeah. Because the Rose was inspired by Crime Master. I thought maybe that's what they were going for, but I was wrong. But I guess Mastermind is just made up for this. But
maybe it was a reference. Maybe it was a reference to another storyline.
Could have been, yeah. We should point out that the actor that plays Herbert Landon, David Warner, only just died a few days before the recording of this episode, right?
Yep.
And to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of him. Like, I've never been a huge fan of him. I've seen him in so many different things, and I've just never really liked him as an actor. He's a fine actor, but he's just never been one of my favorites. But I must give a shout out to him because he was in 2 Star Trek films, and I love Star Trek. In fact, he was in 2 Star Trek films, and I believe he was also in that famous episode of Star Trek where he tortures Picard, right? Wasn't that him?
I believe so. He played a Klingon, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Josh, how far along are you on your Star
Not
Trek?
Very far.
Okay.
But I know him from Tron, actually.
Yes.
I was thinking about him in Tron as well. And Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze, he's like the scientist in that. He is in Titanic. He plays Billy Zane's like muscle. Right. Who, like, in the middle of like the ship going down, he's just like, yeah, all right, I'll chase him with a gun, no problem.
Yep. Yeah, he's always been around.
Yeah. And I would say, like, so this is not his finest voice work, but he did play Ra's al Ghul on the Batman animated.
I forgot about that. Yep, I forgot about that.
And that's a great performance.
Oh, sorry. He was a Klingon in 2 different Star Trek movies, playing 2 different Klingons. He was also a Cardassian. I believe it was a Cardassian that tortured Picard. So that must have been him. But for Star Trek fans out there, I could be wrong because I'm skimming through like an article now, and I'm not going to take the time to read it because you don't want to listen to me read. But anyway, yeah, fine actor. It's too bad we lost him. But the voice work on the show is definitely...
It's not his high point.
Yeah, it's... the voice acting in the show is good, but the gold standard is still Batman the Animated Series. So let's be clear, right?
Right.
There is some crossover, and some of the voices are good in this, but I just think that whoever was directing them just wasn't... The voice acting is not as subtle, I find, on this show.
Yeah, it's not like Andrea Romano on...
There you go.
In Batman animated. Yeah.
Exactly.
But yeah, there's a lot of crossover actors, right? Like I was mentioning before, like, Dr. Octopus in this. This is the first time I realized that he was played by Ephraim Zimbalist Jr., who famously played Alfred on Batman animated. Again, much better performance on there.
Yes.
Mark Hamill voiced the Hobgoblin, doing basically an identical performance to his Joker, which even as a kid, I remember finding really weird.
Yes.
Ed Asner.
Okay, now
JJ,
he's great.
Like, that's great. Yeah.
Ed Asner as JJ is great.
It's fantastic. Yeah. So
some people think he's better than J.K. Simpson. Is it J.K. Oh, J.K. Simmons.
Yeah.
But I think J.K. Simmons is better.
They're both great. They're both iconic takes on the character.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, it is hard to judge one episode because they all kind of run together. But Barry? What do you think of this episode? Do you think it was solid or what?
Yeah, I mean, again, as much as I've been complaining about it and how convoluted and silly it was, I mean, I did really enjoy watching, like, getting a lot of, Ed Asner's Jonah in this. Like, we got a lot of him, and he's great, and he's, like, just really, chews the dialogue up. Maybe not the best, like, Spider-Man story, but it was kind of interesting to get a Jonah-centric one, because you didn't get a lot of those in the animated. Whereas in the comics, every now and then, you'll get thrown a bone on that, right?
That's the thing, is he's kind of treated like a one-dimensional character of just, he wants pictures of Spider-Man on his desk. It's always nice to see a little bit of character development with him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and that's what makes Jameson works as such a long-time character. Is like he's not a complete bastard,
right?
Whereas like as great as J.K. Simmons is, we've never really seen that part of him, right?
Right. Yeah. So, Josh, what do you think?
Yeah, it was a good one. I like again, I like JJ in this episode a whole lot. It wasn't the best out of all of the episodes that we reviewed, but I think the best of this week's picks.
Yeah, I'd give you that.
I don't know. There's something just so weird about the next two that just don't work for me. But yeah, it's a cute episode. It picks up and kind of like recaps what happened in like the finale last season. So it does a pretty good job.
Yeah. We should also point out that this episode is partly based on Spectacular Spider-Man 150, 151, and 155, which we have actually not read yet. We're just about to, so we're kind of spoiling the story a little bit, but that's okay. We can still enjoy it. But anyway. Okay, so now we're going to jump to the next episode.
There's a reason I chose to recap the first one, because I was like thinking, how the hell do you recap either of the other two?
Yeah, I'm going to have a heck of a time, but I'll do my best. But Josh, you're going to do the episode called The Cat.
Right. Okay. So Spidey goes over to Felicia's house for another booty call, and we see that Felicia runs into a room with her mother, and she's talking to this guy in the shadows, and they're like trying to keep a secret of some sort. They have like some sort of business deal together, and then this character is revealed to be to be Doc Ock. he grabs Felicia and Felicia's mother and starts kind of like threatening them. And Spider-Man comes in, saves the day, yada, yada, yada. They kind of leave, whatever. Later on, Spidey finds some information about what they were kind of like, what their conversation was about. And it turns out that there's this like thing called the Azubak fortune, and it was like this big jewel heist that happened like years ago. And when looking through all of like the newspapers and stuff, he finds a picture of the like person in charge named John Hardesky, and it turns out that that is actually secretly Felicia's father, who has been presumed dead for years or whatever. Mm-hmm. So Kingpin and Doc Ock are teaming up, talking about how they're gonna work together, and how Kingpin has spliced the chameleon's DNA with the blood of an alien which had a techno-organic virus, which made him able to use his chameleon powers without his belt. And also, they can see through his eyes through a computer somehow and track him. And he's just like a big, like, MacGuffin cool tool thing, I guess, now.
Right.
So he's in prison at one of, like, the SHIELD facilities. And they use him to break out and then to kidnap John Hardesky, who is also being held in the facility by SHIELD for some reason. So, like, somehow Spidey gets tangled in all this. I don't even remember how he finds out, but they go there. There's, like, battles on helicarriers and stuff.
Right.
He gets the badge. He gets the badge from Jonah's office, which can call SHIELD.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's what it was. So he gets the badge from Jonah's place, calls SHIELD. There's like this like kind of like mini fight because the Spidey's not with SHIELD and whatnot. We also find out through SHIELD files that the reason why John Hardesky is so valuable and kept by SHIELD is because when he was little, it turns out that he has a photogenic memory. So when he was little, he was in the room with Captain America when he became a super soldier. And he memorized the super soldier serum before it was destroyed by Nazis. And then Nazis tricked him into giving them the super soldier serum.
Yeah,
that's correct.
And then so he's kind of like, I'm not gonna help you. I'm not gonna help you. Sorry. And then he's like, all right, well maybe you'll help me now. And then he like shows that Doc Ock has Felicia captured, and then they kind of have a reunion, and he's kind of like, well, now will you give me the serum? And then that's where this episode ends, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that's about it.
I have to quickly say that the reason he knew he was being duped is because he said, why would the guy who's working for the Nazis call himself Captain America?
Right.
And then,
anyway.
And then the guy, like the Nazis, like don't even attempt to like come up with an excuse. They're like, well, you got us.
Yeah.
And then Red Skull comes out, and you're already like, there's already way too many characters in this episode. And then Red Skull comes out from behind a curtain, and it's just like, hey, you get back here, and the child outwits Red Skull and the Nazis.
And it's so weird. They couldn't just be like, and the Nazis tricked me. And then we cut out of the flashback and he's like, boy, was I wrong. Or so, we have to like show like Red Skull coming out and the whole like Captain America revelation, whatever.
And so like, here's the thing that I was a little lost on. And I guess it maybe is just the adaptation of this, but like, John Hardesky, like he's always supposed to be this big master thief called the Cat, right? And that's where, Black Cat kind of takes all of her inspiration from. In this universe, was he a 13-year-old boy who went to jail? When did he have a kid? What happened? Was Felicia born in the fucking late 40s?
Yeah, the timelines never add up, but
No.
just to be clear, is the Cat a character from the comics?
I thought that.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Really?
I mean, in every okay, so I can't recall him in Amazing, but I've seen countless iterations of Black Cat stories that involve her father being a famous thief called the Cat, and like it was in the even as recent as like the Marvel video game, like the most recent Marvel Spider-Man video game had a subplot about it. The Ultimate Comics had a subplot about it, and I think Spectacular, the animated Spectacular, also dealt with it.
I thought that this was like a loose adaptation of the Black Fox.
That's what I thought.
Because he has like the gray mustache.
Right.
He's like a burglar. He's usually kind of like hanging around when Felicia is in like a lot of the Spectacular issues that we've been reading. So I had just assumed that it was like a adaptation of
Well,
that.
I have some news, folks. This character was created for this cartoon in this episode. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So he's probably inspired by the Black Fox, but I think his character carried over, like you said, Barry, into other series, maybe.
Yeah. I'm looking at it now, and you're right.
Okay.
I never would have assumed that it came out of this.
Wow, yeah. Yeah, and he even has like the all black like jumpsuit when he hacks it. Spoiler alert, when he hacks into the like computer to click delete
I love that.
to delete the super soldier serum. But he's in like he even kind of looks like the Black Fox when he's in that, because he's got like all black costume, he's got glasses on. I don't know,
Okay, here we are. He did appear. He was created by Marv Wolfman and Keith Pollard for Amazing number 194, which came out in July 1979. He was called Walter Hardy, but he was a world-renowned cat burglar and the father of Felicia Hardy. After that, this John one is the one that kind of ended up continuing there. So they created him here, John Hardesky.
Right.
And then Jack Hardy is who he was in the Ultimate Universe. And thank God for Wikipedia, because like it just sounds like I know all this, but no.
I just have to point out that's also could be a sneaky way to not pay Marv Wolfman and whoever else co-created the original character. They do that a lot.
Marvel not pay original creators or artists for their work? What?
Sneaky bastards. Actually, that's also why we got remember Black Vulcan from Super Friends?
I do not.
Okay. Super Friends, you remember Black Vulcan, right, Josh? Maybe not.
No. Did we do anything? We watched an episode with?
No, I just thought that you'd know who that was. Anyway,
the only episodes I've seen are for this.
No, we never watched Super Friends. I'm talking about Super Friends, not Spider Friends.
Super Friends. Sorry.
Yeah, Super Friends.
Yeah.
So there's a character called Black Vulcan on the Super Friends, and he was black, and he had lightning powers, but he had a yellow and brown suit and bare legs. And he didn't appear in DC Comics at all, but it turns out years later you find out the reason Hanna-Barbera created him is because they didn't want to pay extra for Black Lightning, because Black Lightning was partially owned by Tony Isabella, and DC was like, oh, well, if you want to use Black Lightning, you have to pay him more. And they're like, screw that, we'll just create our own character. Whereas what really should have happened is DC should have given Tony Isabella a cut of their own pay, which obviously they wouldn't do. So that's how you get Black Vulcan. That's that.
Everybody's most memorable character, Black Vulcan.
Yeah. So anyway, this episode, I mean, it was definitely cool to see the backstory of Felicia Hardy, right? To see some exploration of her backstory.
Well, especially because, you know, at this point, like, Felicia's in, like, episode 1 of the series and, like, is a regular fixture on the show.
Right.
So it is interesting that I didn't think it, like, watching this now, I'm like, wow, it really took them till season 4 to have her become the Black Cat.
It's funny because even as I was watching it, even though I've just watched the whole show, I'm like, oh, is this her first appearance?
Yeah.
It feels like she's already been in it, but she hasn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh-huh. So that was cool.
Yeah, we've seen Felicia quite a bit, but yeah, this is the first time season 4. But I guess it kind of makes sense they wanted to write off Peter's love interest before introducing her into the show.
Yeah, because for a kid's show, you might not want to do love triangles and stuff like that. I mean, Spectacular Spider-Man had no problem with that, but in the 90s, they sure didn't want Parker to have a different love interest. Because, I mean, I might be 100% wrong, but Gwen never comes into the animated.
No,
right? No,
apparently
I didn't think so.
They said that they didn't want to use Gwen because if they did, the audience would just be waiting for her to die.
Which is true of anytime you use Gwen Stacy, it is true.
Right. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, I thought this episode was pretty good. Not a masterpiece, but I thought it was pretty good. The shield stuff didn't work for me.
No.
Gosh, Shield. I remember it flashed back to as a kid being like, oh man, now I remember why I used to like just really hate Shield in general because this show. And like, you know, as a guy with an eye patch, I'm supposed to like Nick Fury, but he's so dorky in this that.
Yeah,
You know,
they're still doing the David Hasselhoff.
Oh yeah, they sure
Yikes!
are. Yeah.
Yes,
Type
which I've
character.
still not seen. But
I saw that as a kid.
Really, and how was it?
It was a TV movie starring David Hasselhoff as Nick Fury. How good do you think it was?
Yeah. What was I gonna say? I don't know if the voice actor has changed for Nick Fury, but in this episode, Nick Fury is voiced by, I will find out in a minute, but I will say it's the same voice actor that played Smokescreen and Ultra Magnus on the Transformers cartoon. I guess his name is Jack Angel, but I don't know if he's always been doing Nick Fury, but this is the first time I've noticed him because he has a very distinct voice.
Interesting. Yeah, I think he only showed up briefly
Before this,
yeah. But
so yeah,
yeah, I don't know. This episode's fine, I guess. There's a lot of weird, unneeded stuff. Like,
Yeah.
we just established that Kingpin has connections to the prison, but we have him. I guess it's like a different prison, so they can include Shield or whatever. But like, the whole chameleon thing is so stupid.
It's so stupid.
It's so dumb.
I love that, like, and then like Chameleon like stays behind in prison.
Yeah.
And you're like, what do we know about Chameleon that would suggest that he wouldn't try to save himself? Like, why would he be like cool with like just being a patsy for the Kingpin?
Yeah, like, did he like throw him? Did Kingpin like send him off to jail after experimenting on him so he could just be like, oh, I've got a trick up my sleeve for when I need to bust somebody out of jail again?
I guess so.
The second time in a row.
It's also weird, like, both of these episodes had it, but more this one and then the next one, where it's just like, oh my god, how many characters are you going to try to fit into this episode? Like, what? Like, you throw Chameleon in there, you got Nick Fury, you got Nora, you got Captain America, Red Skull.
Yeah, and like, there's no really like reason for them to be there.
Yeah.
I was also like kind of waiting for the whole chameleon thing to like pay off.
Yeah, he just hangs out. He goes back to his cell, pretends to be Jack Hardesky, who, you know, after the culmination of this arc, I guess they're gonna be like, wait a second.
Yeah, I was kind of like waiting for like at the end of the next episode when the story's like at its climax, we're gonna find out like Spider-Man has accidentally been working with Chameleon or something, and there was a reason this whole time he was there. But
yeah, that would have been better.
No, Yeah. Yeah, would have been pretty cool. Except, no, he's just playing a stand-in.
So I guess we can say this episode was pretty good. Yeah. Now we're gonna jump to the next one, the final episode we're reviewing today. This is Partners in Danger, Chapter 3, The Black Cat. Mm-hmm. And we're introduced, I'll summarize this one to the best of my abilities. We're introduced to a jewel thief, who we see as the Black Cat from the comics. Spider-Man and Black Cat end up fighting. Black Cat has the opportunity to pull Spider-Man's mask off, but as with every supervillain, she decides not to. Because she doesn't want to know what he looks like. But she kisses him anyway, right?
No, she says it'll be more rewarding when he tells me who he is himself.
As would happen in real life.
Because this Felicia Hardy is like madly fetishizing in love with Spider-Man.
Actually, yeah, and to be fair, so is the comic one. The comic Black Cat liked Spider-Man, not Peter Parker.
Right.
In fact, yeah.
And even in this show, we have established for a while that Felicia has like a really strong crush on Spider-Man, even before this arc. So
right,
yeah,
this is
very true.
And I can actually relate because there are many girls that like me only when I'm wearing a mask covering my face, and then when I remove it, they want nothing to do with me. So anyway, we're gonna jump to scene 3. There's a lot of stuff going on that I actually don't remember, but there's all this crap with Kingpin and. I don't remember any of this stuff. I just watched it like yesterday. I don't remember anything. You guys can fill in the gaps here. But what is Kingpin's plan here? I don't even remember. Because Kingpin is conspiring.
He wants to make a super soldier to kill Spider-Man.
Okay, so that plot's still going on. Okay.
Right.
You know, it's funny. I watched the show and I enjoy it, but I don't remember it. Go ahead, Josh.
Essentially, what we find out is that they test it on Felicia, the super soldier serum. So like she kind of like in the comics where she does get her powers from Kingpin. In this one, it's kind of like the super soldier serum is tested on her because Kingpin's got like her mom and dad captive, and they end up like breaking out of Kingpin's lair.
But I have to point out, when they break out of a air vent that is 4 inches above the main exit and entrance of the building, which is hilarious. Yeah. But anyway.
I mean, yeah, of course. Also, S.H.I.E.L.D. is chasing them this entire time because they think that Spider-Man, I think if I remember correctly, they think Spider-Man has something to do with the breakout from the S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yes, because he was there when it all happened. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're like shooting him. There's like a chase scene and blah, 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 blah. Anyways, John deletes the super soldier serum. They defeat Kingpin and the gang. And John turns himself in after having like one last night with his family. And then Nick Fury's like, thanks, Spider-Man, for helping me bring John back, I guess. And,
even though they wouldn't have known that John was even missing because Chameleon's pretending to be him in prison.
Yeah.
Also, S.H.I.E.L.D. lost about $38 million worth of flying motorcycles.
Yeah.
Half of the time they were just like ditching them for no reason.
Kept exploding, and then they were like, all right, I'll get on the back of yours now.
Yeah.
And the scene went on. The scene went on so long, and they lost every single flying motorcycle
and destroyed so many buildings.
So many buildings.
So here's the thing. I want to point out a couple things because we haven't really talked specifically about this, but I'm actually looking at the shot right now. This is one of my favorite shots that I've seen, and it's not really a big deal, but there's the animation in this series is inconsistent, but in this episode is pretty good. But there's a really cool shot where Spider-Man swings down and he lands on a building and he's looking over at Felicia through like a window, and it just kind of reminds me how, you know, all these Spider-Man movies where, well, first of all, any blockbuster. And I noticed this like 20 years ago with Godzilla in 1998. When a character is like running through the city and the CGI camera is flying around them and following them exactly where they're going or whatever, I never liked that. This shot right here, I'm actually going to screen cap it. I don't know. But I just love the way that it's just such a plain shot, but Felicia is like in her apartment or whatever it is, and Spider-Man is like hanging out outside, and it's just such a not mundane, but what's the word I'm looking for? Like
You mean like when he's in the windowsill and like they are all like at the end?
Well, yeah, it's right near the end. I just sent it to you. He's basically like on the
darn Disney Plus won't let us see it.
Blacks it out. Yeah, you can't see it. But basically, imagine Felicia's in the foreground and like 25 feet away in the background, Spider-Man is like on the building across the street. But it's just so cool to be like, they could easily do that shot in a movie, but they never do those basic things. It's almost like Alex Ross kind of fixated on that in the Marvels book, which I'm sure you... Barry, have you read Marvels?
Oh, yeah.
Like the whole... Josh, Marvels? Yeah, like, you know, you have a bunch of people in an office building, and then all of a sudden you see Spider-Man walking, like crawling up the window on the outside. I think scenes like that do more to show what it would be like if this guy was real than to have a camera flying around Spider-Man fighting the lizard on top of a building, right? Like, sometimes stuff like that is cool.
Even just like the poses that they put him in, like he's talking to Felicia, and instead of them standing on the balcony facing each other and going back and forth, like a lot of cartoons would do, because it's cheaper. You just you don't have to animate anything or draw a new pose. You just have to animate the mouth moving. No, they have him like jump off the balcony and swing around, and he's like hanging off the side of the building talking to Felicia, like
I like
exactly
that.
like Spider-Man would do.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that was good. I like that a lot. One of my things with the MCU is I always, and now that Iron Man's not around, it kind of bugs me that they didn't do it, but they have so many things set in New York that it always bugs me that not once does like they just have a throwaway thing of Iron Man flying over top or something like that.
Sure.
Or I would say you should definitely do it with Spider-Man, but I don't know how much Sony's going to let them do that in the background. But like, it's not like you have to pay the actors.
Yeah.
For a background shot.
Good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is kind of a weird thing about Marvel. You know, I talk about the differences between the two all the time, but one of them is that DC's characters are all in completely separate fictional cities, and Marvel's are all in the real city of New York. Almost all of them are in New York. At least in the beginning they were, which is an interesting choice. But all
the big Stan Lee ones are.
Exactly. Yeah. It definitely makes for a crowded landscape, and it also makes it tricky when you're trying to do a story where anything of a large scale happens to the city. There's no way you can do it without addressing, well, where's the Fantastic Four? Where's Doctor Strange? What are these guys doing, right? You have to kind of incorporate everybody, or else it doesn't make sense.
I think that's why a lot of the time they don't have Iron Man flying in the background of New York. It's because, like, when that big thing happens, when the big beam opens in the middle of the sky in New York and the world is going to end, it's like, hey, where's Iron Man? I just saw him flying around.
I just saw him fly over.
Not doing anything. Yeah.
They used to do that in Superman, too. There was so many Superman comics where, Superman's on a mission in space.
Because they always had to do that. Because
he's in the Alpha
Superman could stop
system.
anything. Yeah.
Right, exactly. But anyway, this episode, I don't remember it, to be honest, distinctly from the other two, but I thought it was fine. I mean, I can't believe, again, this is the first time we've really seen the Black Cat, but I am a fan of her character, so...
She's better in this than any of the comics we've read with her.
Yeah.
She's really stinky in the 80s comics.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was a fan of her always. Like I read her growing up, and I was always a fan of her, so I have nothing bad to say.
I think Black Cat is a character that has gotten better over the years as opposed to her initial. Like I think that, the version of her in the Ultimate comics is really good. And the version of her that they used in Spectacular Spider-Man was really good, like the animated Spectacular Spider-Man. So I think it just took time to develop her, because like in the beginning, you could tell they were like, I don't know how to do this without just making her Catwoman.
100%, yeah.
And like I think that they eventually got into a good thing, whereas like sure they have, there's a love interest there, but it's handled so very differently than, say, Batman and Catwoman are. So it's still interesting. we forgot to mention my favorite part about this episode, which is just such a great, like, animated show being like, oh, fuck, what are we going to do with our existing character models? They give Black Cat the power to change her appearance at will, to disguise her identity, and clearly it's because they're like, well, we're not going to throw out all our old Felicia Hardy character models, so they're like, so Black Cat looks drastic, like she's just built and, like, you know, has the super soldier serum in her, so she's like stacked, she's tall, her hair is like huge and long and white, and then she's able to just switch back into like 5'3" Felicia Hardy again, because you know they didn't want to throw away the character models. Or it would also, you know, and then in universe you'd have to explain, like, why is Felicia Hardy jacked now?
Right. Or why doesn't Peter realize?
Yeah.
Peter's really
right. The thing is, in the comics, the characters never recognize someone else when they get a secret identity. But the other thing is that the thing I liked about Felicia Hardy originally is that she had no superpowers, right? But one of the things we talk about in Flea Market Fantasy is my biggest pet peeve about superhero comics, especially back in the 80s, is how there'll be a character who has no superpowers, but then through some accident or through whatever scientific means, they'll gain powers that coincidentally match their motif that they already had. Like, I believe it was it Hellcat or Tigra, or because there's Cat and there's Hellcat and there's Tigra. One of them started out with no powers and then magically got cat powers. You know, Black Lightning had no powers.
Black Cat.
Huh? It
was Black Cat in the comics. It was
no,
Felicia.
I know Black Cat. I was gonna get to that. I was building to that.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, Black Cat in the comics had no powers. Then all of a sudden she got bad luck powers.
She has bad luck powers, yeah.
Yeah. And there's so many examples of that if you go through the history, like characters that have no powers and then they gain powers that coincidentally, you know, it's like Mr. Freeze's real name is Victor Freeze. What a coincidence, eh? You know?
Dr.
Anyway.
Otto Octavius.
Another one, Otto Octavius.
Right.
By the way,
I think
go ahead.
Like,
good old Stephen J. Chameleon.
Yeah.
It's pronounced chameleon. I think that they could easily just be like, this mutation, like bonds with your DNA, so it takes something that like is already a part of you. Boom. Done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they never do anything like that. Like, how does the super soldier serum change her and give her Black Cat burglar powers? It doesn't make any sense, right?
You know, they kind of did that in the Roger Corman Fantastic Four film, where they had Reed Richards explain at one point in the movie, they're like, wait a minute, I got it. Johnny, you're kind of a hothead, right? And Thing, I don't even know how
you're
to explain
dumb as a
Thing.
rock, right?
Yeah, you're dumb as a rock. And Sue, you kind of like to disappear into the background. And they tied it in so that all of the superpowers match their personalities. But again, that's kind of ridiculous as well, right? Because in the English language, we have an analogy where we describe someone with a bad temper as hot-headed. Now you're the Human Torch. It makes sense, right? Anyway. So yeah, comics are awesome. Yeah, I'm glad we're reviewing them at this day and age. So yeah, this episode was kind of on par with the other ones. I mean, the animation, we all agreed that the animation in the first season was really good. It declined a little bit, then it got better. I think this...
And then the end of season 3 was fantastic.
Yes.
Remember how great those Goblin episodes were?
Yes. And
then, yeah, I feel like these ones kind of reverted back to like the season 1, season 2 era, where it's like pretty good, especially for a 90s cartoon.
They probably they probably, I would say, they would probably put in a little bit more money into the ones that they knew were important arcs for them and stuff. Because like I think I was reading that like much like the Batman animated, like they weren't necessarily ordering seasons of this. They were ordering blocks of episodes. So like when this show ends like really abruptly at episode 65, it was because literally like they had ordered 65 episodes, and then they were like, okay, well, that's fine, that's all we ordered.
Yeah,
you're done now.
Right.
Yeah,
We ordered 65 hamburgers and 65 fries, and now we've got them. Goodbye. That's it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it ends on such a weird thing.
I don't
too.
remember
Like,
how it ends, so
Okay, I won't say anything.
Oh,
Then. I
okay.
won't say anything.
I think I remember how it ends because I remember how they try to pick up with that, and it doesn't really make any sense. It leads to a very bad show that nobody finished watching.
which was what?
Spider-Man Unlimited.
Ah, never seen it. Okay. I should point out that we talked about the odd release chronology of the series. So the last episode of season 3 aired on November 23rd, 1996. The first episode of season 4 aired on February 1st, 1997. So yeah, they were just all over the place. And the thing is like, you know, when I was a kid, like I remember Transformers season 1 had 16 episodes. Transformers season 2 had like 49. But that first year, they just reran the fuck out of those 16 episodes, and I was like, I was happy. Whatever.
Yeah, that was Batman. Batman animated, like the first season is like, the first season contains like more episodes in it than the majority, like than the rest of the series combined.
Right.
Like the first season of Batman animated is like 61 episodes or something.
Right.
Like that.
And then after that, it was like 10.
Right.
Yeah.
Or something per year, and you're like, oh, that's all we got. You know,
it's really weird. Sometimes too, like companies will order a certain amount of episodes and they'll call it a season,
right?
but they'll divide it up differently too on air. Like, I worked on a couple of seasons of Inspector Gadget when they rebooted it, and I worked on season 2 is what they called it. But when they release all of the episodes, they actually divided the first order of episodes into 2 seasons. So when they ordered season 2 from us, it was actually season 3 and season 4. So it's like, I feel like too, sometimes they just kind of, you know, whatever works for the release schedule or wherever it's airing to might only have like a certain amount of slots, or it does better in a certain season because, oh, we have to delay the season because the toys aren't coming out yet, or we want to line up all of the episodes so they're ready for the Christmas season so that our toys will sell well.
Yeah.
So it there could be a number of different things as to why it's so like weird and chopped up, but especially like back in the 80s with like Transformers and stuff like that is like very much a commercial for toys. Literally. Like this, I remember the toys for this. This show, I remember too.
The big Spider Slayer toys, like they would advertise. I didn't have those, obviously. I had the action figures, but the Spider Slayer toys always look so cool. And also, like, I think another weird thing with like this one mostly kept to Saturday mornings, whereas like Batman, they would air it every day,
right.
5 days a week, and then when they were airing new episodes, they would be airing new episodes 5 days a week. So then you'd have like just like 18-month repeat period,
wow,
right? Where they would just rerun the series like 18 times, and then randomly there would be new episodes.
Yep. It was tough. Yeah, you're right. Because if you're burning through one a day, you might burn through an entire season in like 2 or 3 weeks, and then you're done.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're right. Good point. So anyway, okay, so animation-wise, where do you put this, Barry, compared to... We talked about it a little bit, but compared to Batman, compared to X-Men, and all those other 90s cartoons, where do you rate this one?
It's... Watching it again, like... It's making me really definitely want to just dig right into it again. I remember, like, I would say as a kid, like, Batman was obviously always my favorite. And then I really liked Spider-Man because Spider-Man's always been one of my favorite characters. I enjoyed the Superman animated series despite not being a Superman fan, but the quality of it was enough to keep me entertained as a kid. And I remember, like, I liked X-Men a lot, but even as a kid, remember finding it a little like cheesy. So I'm curious to go back to that too, because as an older comic book nerd, I think I'll appreciate a lot more of a lot of things in it than I
Sure.
did then. So, yeah.
All right.
This is not I've mentioned Spectacular Spider-Man a few times. Like, that's the best Spider-Man animated show by a long
Really?
stretch.
It's really
Josh,
Oh,
Joshua
God.
Mervell, do you agree with that?
good. Ooh, I have a soft spot for the 90s one.
Yeah.
I really love the stories in this one. This is my first. I talk about this all the time on the podcast, but this is my first introduction to Spider-Man. Was this show?
Probably mine too. Mine too.
So
yeah.
this definitely has a soft spot, but Spectacular Spider-Man is very good. Yeah,
I've
is a really good
never
show.
seen it.
It's on Netflix now, so I would recommend it. Don't let the animation look to it throw you off. It is
it's got like an interesting style, which is really cool.
It is very the plotting in it is very good, and the character writing is really, really good.
And that theme song, I mean,
and that theme song. Oh man.
It's better than this Aerosmith one for sure.
Yeah.
Well, while we're plugging other shows, can I say that X-Men Evolution is the best version of the X-Men? It's better than 90s X-Men. You agree?
I need to watch it because I've only seen episodes here and there.
I liked it more as a kid.
Yeah, it's really good. Yep. Like, even if because the reason a lot of people hate it is because they changed the premise. They put them in a regular high school, mixed in with regular kids, as well as the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. So a lot of people just shit on it because of that. But the fact is that the animation's great. A lot of the same creators from Batman the Animated Series, like Boyd Kirkland and other people, worked on it, right? The animation's excellent. The voice acting's excellent. But so what? They changed the premise a little bit. I don't mind that at all. I thought it was a really good show. So yeah, Josh, you should check it out.
Yeah, the writing was good enough that it maintained it, right?
Exactly.
Like, that's another reason I would check out Spectacular, Mike, is that it's Gargoyle. It's Greg Weisman who did Gargoyles.
Ooh, okay.
Gargoyles and then Young Justice.
Okay.
So
it has like almost an Ultimates feel to it, which is kind of interesting, like the character designs and stuff. So it's nice because it's not trying to just do it again.
Yeah.
You mean X-Men Evolution?
Oh, sorry, no, Spectacular Spider-Man.
Oh, sure.
It's not. It's not like doing the same stories over and over again. They're able to kind of like do their own thing with it.
Yeah,
which is nice.
It has really good, interesting spins on it, and it does feel like Ultimate a little, and it takes a little from it. So yeah.
I'm in 100%. Okay, cool. Well, there you go. I want to thank Barry for joining us for this episode. The first time you reviewed the cartoons with us. I want to thank you for joining us.
Hey, thanks. It was fun.
All right. And G.I. Jolie and Bex Luthor could not be with us this week, but they will be with us next week. So be sure to join us. And Josh, you can take it from here.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast. Please leave us a review or keep in touch on our Facebook or our Twitter page. At Comic Book Syndicate. You can find our podcast anywhere you can find podcasts. Please let us know what you guys think about the episodes and the shows or the comics or the things that we're talking about. We want to keep that conversation going. What's up?
No, it's just funny. And until next Monday, see you later.